Okay, so a couple things about this week. I had the perception that it was going to be a much worse week than it turned out to be. So that actually maybe is good news. So yeah, not my best week. As we can look at the numbers here. Here, let me grab them. You're gonna see them on the screen, but we only sold 31 items this week. There's a couple of reasons for that we're gonna get into. eBay was like, it was okay, probably half of what I did the week before. Poshmark was pretty much dead, but I have a reason for that as well. Etsy, you won't see any flatware sales this week. I did have a good sale couple good sales of flatware that will be shown next week, because they happened on Sunday, Monday, so it shows up in next week's what sold. Just a sale on Ruby Lane. Depop actually surprised me. One day I had only one sale on eBay and I had 3 sales on Depop. And I was like, what in the world is this? Anyway, so my total was $839. So like I said, that first week in January, we were like right around 900, but then we'd been like 1,500 something last week. So the reason is, so Monday night, so I told you I was sick last week, so that had thrown me off with my schedule and everything with listing. Everybody in our family has been sick one after the other, but Monday night I just got hit with like a flare up of a chronic condition that I have. And it was like nothing that I've ever had before. And I seriously was flat on my back the whole week. And I did not list. I did not care. I was just trying to manage pain. So I didn't cross list. I might have hit the share button for Poshmark like once or twice, but I didn't care. So it totally is seen in the results from this week. So feeling much better now. And I've had to make some lifestyle and type changes. I have doctor's appointments and things coming up. But it's interesting how eBay kind of, my husband also, he had a lot of things going on outside of reselling. He's a finished carpenter, general remodeler, contractor kind of thing. And he had some projects and jobs that he was doing outside the house, and which is totally fine because that's our money, our main income still at this point. We're still kind of trying to play around with that idea of him joining me and doing reselling. But I think realistically, he's always going to have his hand in some kind of project or another, but just maybe not as the main thing. Anyway, so eBay actually wasn't so bad. He didn't list a whole lot this week, I don't think. He might have done some where he ended some stale listings. And of course, we sent out offers throughout the week, and so we still had some sales on eBay. Now, Poshmark is another story. If you are not active in Poshmark, there is hardly anything happening. So that was the reason for that. Etsy, like I said, I didn't have flatware sales, but these were pattern sales. So $78 in pattern sales in my pattern shop that I have not touched in weeks. So that was kind of a nice little, I think when you have one sale on Etsy, it kind of pops you up a little bit. And it ends up, making you a little bit more visible for a couple more days. Ruby Lane, again, didn't touch it. And Depop, like I said, that kind of came out of nowhere as well. I didn't do anything with that either. So yeah, being active in your shops definitely helps. Adding new items, definitely a big factor in your sales. But I'm hoping this week ends up a little bit better. I feel better, but I do have some other things going on outside of reselling again this week, just commitments and family type things. And so I'm going to try to, fit in some listing where I can here and there and try to make a concerted effort to do that, to try to get things rolling again. So anyway, let us start with eBay and we'll just go right into what sold. I hope you guys had an awesome week. If you guys want to leave me a comment down below and let me know how your week went for reselling, what was your top favorite item that sold, or maybe your best-selling one, or maybe you had the biggest return on investment for it. That's interesting to me. I always like to hear, how you guys are doing, and if you had a really good sale that you want to share. So go ahead and leave that comment below, and that would be awesome. It'll give me something to look at later. And anyway, okay, let's get started. Let's talk about what sold. This is a brand that I have heard of from other resellers, but had never found it before. And I think I found it at a thrift store at the end of the season last year, end of winter season. And so they just kind of got thrown into a bin and I dug them out recently looking for my really serious winter stuff to get listed. So I'm glad I got these done in time. The brand is called Sweaty Betty, and I had heard that it used to be a really good no-brainer pickup for things, but it had kind of dropped. I think it's a lot of workout and activewear type clothing. So, but I saw these, and I think since it was end of season, I even got a better deal on them, so I probably only paid like a couple dollars. And they're basically like they're tights, but they're like a base layer for skiing. And just very whimsical, kind of, I don't know, distressed looking. Here, I'll show you the tags inside. It's just printed on there. Anyway, it had kind of like this pilling, but it was all kind of on purpose. So I didn't do much to it. Let me look. Hold on. I think I missed the one where it said, oh yeah, it says Sweaty Betty. Like, can you see it? Like, here, hold on. Like right down in here. Sweaty Betty. So I think it might have been on another tag or something somewhere. Or I just saw Sweaty Betty and went, oh, I've heard of that before. So they sold for $40. So I was pretty happy with that. Next up is Vintage Wranglers. They are made in the USA. They did have pockets, so they weren't bareback or anything like that, but they were definitely had that vintage 90s, 80s, 90s kind of look to them. Very mom jean, all that kind of stuff is popular right now. So those sold for, hold on, let me get, when I look at them on my phone, I can actually see, yeah, these sold for $25. So that has the actual selling price shows up on my phone. So $25 for those. And I think those were when my husband was like, go to the thrift store and find some more Rockies Western jeans. And so I did, but then I also grabbed a couple pairs of vintage Wranglers as well. So I think those were part of that. So $25. Ben Davis. Ben Davis is a name you could keep an eye out for. It's workwear and it's very retro looking. So it can, and it's made in the USA. So it can totally, I don't know. I don't think these were vintage. The website still has a lot of the same stuff that it always had. Anyway, so these were new with tags, which was a good thing for them. And I had them on all sorts of, I had them on Depop, I had them on Posh. They got a lot of attention on Depop. They're very kind of retro looking work pant, right? Which is kind of popular in that straight leg. So they ended up selling for $32, not the $50, which it was fine. Like I said, so a lot of these, we were just sending offers, taking offers, just trying to keep our shop alive to a certain degree. So it was a nice little sale for a hat. Salomon is a good activewear brand. I mean, in some things, there's certain things, shirts like not base layer, but just performance type shirts probably wouldn't sell for very much. This one was Very lightweight. And I picked this up at our little local bin store, our little outlet type place. So hardly paid anything for that, and it sold for a full asking of $25. Next one, did I skip one? I don't know, we'll see. Okay, this one I debated putting in here. So actually it sold for $100. We can go ahead and subtract that. We should actually subtract that from the total that I showed you on that first screen, because the person wants to return it. So it's got, it's Patagonia. It's reversible. So one side was nylon and one side was like a Sherpa fleece. And I had measurements in there and everything, just a couple basic measurements, and including the chest, and they wanted to return it for fit. So that's fine. They'll return it. They just didn't like how it fit. So that is actually, all I have to refund is the purchase price. I don't have to, unless I want to. I don't have to refund the original shipping. And then they have to pay to ship it back. So we'll see how that shakes out. Okay, here we go. J. Crew. This was kind of fun. I just picked this up at the thrift store because I really liked the fact that it was vintage, and you can see the vintage label there for J. Crew. Anyway, you can tell the difference between my listing and my husband's. He takes way more pictures than I do. I took hardly any. I don't even know why. I feel like pictures are missing out of that one, because I usually take the hem and everything too, and the cuffs. So I don't know what happened there, but $25. That sold. I will take that. It's kind of a fun print. It makes me wonder who's going to wear it and how. Okay, 511 Tactical. It can be good. I think you might have remember, or you probably don't because this is kind of boring, but it's just a sweatshirt. But I had found two of them at the same time, and one was like an extra large and one was a 2XL. And we already sold the extra large earlier, and it sold for $35. So it's kind of a heavy duty, like fleece lined sweatshirt. So they actually did pretty good. And that did sell for $35. Chaco, just flip-flops, not kind of their usual strappy kind of look. I haven't done super well. A lot of people love selling Chacos, and I don't know. I mean, I'll find them and they're beat to death, so I don't get them. But I don't know, the ones I've got have just been kind of like, eh. So these actually sold for $20.43. It was an offer somebody sent us. And I was like, yep, they're flip-flops. You can take them. They're actually, I tried them on. I didn't quite like how they felt. I mean, they're too big for me, but, flip-flops, it kind of works. So, but I don't know. People seem to love Chacos. This was actually a good sale. It might have been one of our best sales of the week. Was this t-shirt I picked up at a thrift store, and it was it's Burberry, which you can see it, but it's Burberry fragrances. So that's why I kind of felt confident with it, that it wasn't a fake. I didn't think that they would fake this kind of t-shirt. It doesn't have the traditional Novacek, not glaringly on here. And it was basically a giveaway with the purchase of a fragrance called The Beat. And yeah, I was pleasantly surprised that we ended up getting $50 for that. Next thing is a vintage item. I picked this up either at a yard sale or, yeah, I want to say a yard sale. It could have been our little local outlet center bins kind of thing. So it did have a few of the things inside. It had a cup. It was missing, it's missing. There should be some bottles right there. But it had a spoon. It had the key for it. So it was just like a little travel bar. Had a couple plastic cups, and there you go. That's the outside of it, just like a hard plastic. So that sold for $35. Nautica hat. I picked this hat up the same day as the 2 Polo Ralph Lauren hats that had sold pretty well that were in my previous videos. And I think this probably came from the same person. It's definitely that same type of era, Y2K 90s. This actually sold for 20, I believe. If I can find it. I think they're out of order because they paid at a later time. Okay, so $20 this sold for. Nautica competition, it is kind of more what Nautica was all about when it first came out, was sailing and things like that. So it was kind of a cool hat. It got lots of attention on some of the other sites as well, but I took the $20 offer. This I just picked up somewhere, some thrift store somewhere. I just kind of keep my eyes open for owner's manuals, that type of thing, but like on more unusual types of cars, or something that I just think people will end up wanting to look for. And so this book sold for $25. This was, I don't know if this was one of the listings maybe my son helped my husband with last year, and this actually only sold for $7. I think it was an offer. But Rescue Bots was one of my kids' favorite shows. And this little play school figurine, I don't know, we picked it up probably in a bag of toys or at the bins again, just kind of loose somewhere, and ended up listing it just because we knew somebody would want it someday. Not something I'd like specifically go looking for. Another blazer that my husband picked up at the bins, Ralph Lauren. He had picked up 2 the same day, and the other one had already sold. There was 2 the same size. So this one also did not sell for $35. It sold, oh wait, I think it's at the top because they finally paid. So it only sold for $21.69. Totally fine with us because we got it super, super cheap and just wanted to move it on. Anyway, yeah, they had made the offer, we accepted, and then they didn't pay for several days. So now they paid, now we'll ship it. This was kind of an interesting shirt. I remember picking it up last year. It's called Oil Field Camo, right? So it's just a big work shirt. So it's camo colors, but it says Oil Field Camo, right? And just has scenes from an oil field. So I just thought it was interesting enough. I had checked comps when I picked it up, and they looked okay enough, but we finally got around to listing it, and it sold within a couple of weeks for $35. My husband picked this up not too long ago. It actually sold for $40, not $50. But, we don't do a whole lot with sports jerseys or anything like that. But my husband said it actually it was like a really good condition, really good quality. And he just figured someone would want it. So $40 was actually a pretty good price for that. And he only paid like $2.50. We picked this up not that long ago either. I think we were thrifting together one day, but we were at a thrift store that kind of, I don't know, they've just recently really raised their prices. So we're just kind of trying to look around for things, that other people overlook or might not be interested in. And these were Brooks Brothers, and they were suspenders in the box. They still could have been worn, but they had the original box with it. So they did sell for that full price of $45. So I always kind of keep my eye out for suspenders for different, especially a recognizable brand. And these were a little bit different. They didn't have like a leather tabs that would button. They just had you know, this like silk woven little section. So those actually went pretty quickly, and we were glad because somebody had offered us like 30, and I think I had paid 6. And, you know, when someone offered 30, we were like, you know, how the week's been going with sales. And so we were like, oh, should we just take it? Should we just take it? And I was like, no, I think we should hold out for at least a little bit more, like at least 40. So I don't know whether we countered at 40 or just declined it because it was like a counter to our offer or something. But anyway, someone came along later, a couple days later, and paid 45. So that was nice. Moving on to Etsy, these were some of the pattern sales I had. This one and the next one went to the same buyer. So that was $10 for this cape pattern and $12 for this like gypsy wench princess medieval kind of style, barmaid kind of style pattern. So that was one person's order. Then someone bought this Vogue pattern for $20. And this McCall's pattern for $14. It's kind of a, could be mother of the bride, could be like a bridesmaid dress. Who knows, something like that. So that could be something someone's doing coming up. And then I sold this cross-stitch kit. And that's something that's been very interesting. I had bought some cross-stitch kits at the thrift. They were an okay price, and I did double check a couple of them with prices, and I ended up putting them on eBay, and it was like crickets. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to cross-post them to Etsy into my pattern shop. Just, it's kind of patterns, but I'll throw some other, you know, needlework type things in there too, yarn or buttons or things like that. And like most of the ones I have cross-posted over to Etsy have actually sold. So this one sold for $22. Elsa Williams Heritage Collection. I just thought the subject matter would be something somebody would be interested in. So $22. I think I paid like $4 for those. So now on to the few Poshmark sales I had. This one was not bad of a sale. It was a Smart Wool, which is a good brand to keep your eye out for. It was a wool blend, not even full wool, and just kind of a cool color block pattern. And I had this in my profit pile for a while. So I got it out. I got the shaver thing going on it, removed the pilling. I do have a fairly good sweater shaver that I like to use that I can link down below. And I have never had a problem with it making holes or doing anything like that. And we've been able to save quite a few pieces of clothing, you know, kind of smarten them up a little bit so that people actually buy, you know, the clothing instead of people looking at it going, oh, this is in no good shape, and just getting rid of it. So keep recycling that clothing and getting it to have a longer life, right? That's what reselling's all about. And this one, see, remember, I don't know if you remember, I found this hat and we had already had the bottle and the bottle was not selling, and the hat I was like was not really worth, but I was buying a ton of hats that day, and I was like, you know what, I'll get the Peloton hat and maybe we could put it with the bottle and get rid of it. And so that's finally what happened, but only for $15. So I do not recommend, or I recommend looking everything up that has to do with Peloton. I won't pick it up so much anymore unless it's like super awesome. And then these Keen boots, I think I had bought them for one of my kids because they're a men's 6. I mean, it would have to have been my older son, but actually they fit me and I wore them a time or two. But Keen, I don't know if you're familiar with Keen, but they have certain of their styles have a really wide like toe bed, and I don't know, it just feels very clunky to me. So I I think my husband listed these on eBay, and I was like, oh, well, all right, go ahead, list them. And, um, we might have been saving them for the next kid, but I don't know that he would like them, all that kind of stuff. So anyway, we got $45 out of them. Now, this beret hat was from Nordstrom Rack. It was one we picked up at the bins. And this is the second cashmere little beanie hat that I've had problems with. And I'm trying to remember. I think the first one sold on Posh as well. I don't even remember what happened with that one. She complained. I don't think she opened a case, but she complained. And, that it was shrunk, that it was small. And I think on that one, I mean, she had asked for specific measurements. I gave her those. She bought it anyway. And then she complained that, it wouldn't fit. And I think hats like this are really tricky. So like this hat, like it's fitting on the mannequin's head, but she doesn't have any hair, right? And mannequin and berets are not meant to necessarily fit like a beanie, I had no feeling about this hat that it was shrunken or anything like that. So I just listed it, and we listed it with measurements and everything like that. So I get a case open this week. And she was like, this hat's too small. I think I think it shrunk, blah, blah, blah. And that's another thing with Poshmark. I think I've told you before, Poshmark backs up the sellers pretty well. And so they, you're not like replying to the person. You're both like talking to Poshmark in the case. And all I said in it, because again, I was in pain and I really didn't care. So all I did in the response was just said that measurements were included in the listing. So she came back and admitted, yes, there were measurements. She's like, that was my bad. Like, she should have checked the measurements, and she obviously hadn't read the description. So she just accepted that she was going to have to eat that one. And, Poshmark does not accept returns for the most part. They don't accept returns for fit. And so Poshmark ended up siding with me and just, releasing my money to me. And, if it had been on eBay, I would have had her send it back, or I would have just refunded her, or whatever. But Poshmark has these things in place, and I feel we should take advantage of them because that's kind of what they're there for. And we pay Poshmark kind of a bigger percentage for them to kind of handle all the customer service type things. I feel that that's part of what our money should go to. So anyway, I will not quite sure how else to handle hats like that. I mean, everybody's head is different. The amount of hair they have is different. So unless I guess it's like a big beanie, I don't know what else to do. But that being said, I went to the Bins thrift store today and picked up another beret. But it's not stretchy cashmere like that could shrink. It's wool, and it's like structured a little bit. So I think I'm good. All right, so Ruby Lane. These two sales went to the same person. You'll see why in a minute. I have this pot holder by Taylor, and I don't know ever how to say this, but it's Taylor. I always just say Taylor and Ing. I don't know if there's someone who would like to correct me in the comments how you pronounce that. But just I've sold their mugs before in the same like pattern with the French names of animals. You can see it's signed here. San Francisco, 1975, I think it says. Anyway, so this dog one sold for $30, and then the same buyer at the same time bought the poisson, the fish, and it was just a really nice sale to have this week, so I was excited about that. And then here are the Depop sales that happened when I was least expecting it. So these sold for $19, just a pair of Levi's work pants, not even really vintage, and Levi Strauss is kind of the low end of Levi. So I don't know. My husband picked these up at the thrift at the bins place, and they're definite workwear and they have signs of wear. But somebody on Depop wanted them, so we sold them for $19. We also sold this little snowboarding hat. It was made in Nepal. It was 100% wool. And anyway, got good feedback on that. And also sold this baseball hat, Big Dogs, which is a very 90s brand. And it had been listed for a while, but it sold for, I don't think it was 30, it was 20. It sold for $20. And actually that, I was showing you this, it didn't sell for 15, it sold for 10. I took offers on both of those. And so that was it. That was my week. Yeah, so thanks so much for popping in here with me today, and hoping that this week comes out a little bit better. It was actually interesting because I was not feeling good this past week, and like I said, I didn't care about reselling. It was actually good timing because I got a negative feedback on eBay, and I'm just about to have my one negative feedback drop off, and so I get to have one for a whole nother year. And the issue with that was a coat that had been returned because of fit. And as I explained, I don't have to refund the original shipping because I've already paid the original shipping to the USPS. I don't have it. I didn't keep it. But this was something hard for this person to wrap their head around. So they didn't feel like I gave them enough of a refund. And I didn't want to explain that, hey, if you say that there's something wrong with the item, then that's different. I have to return your shipping. But I don't want to put those ideas into people's heads. And so I just said, this is how eBay works. There was nothing wrong with the item. There was nothing wrong with the listing. I had measurements in it. So this is the refund that you get. So he finally understood what I was saying. I think he thought I was somehow keeping the shipping. And when I finally explained that I don't have that money anymore, it was spent, then he finally got it. But then he just went over to my feedback and said no and left a negative. So anyway, there was all sorts of stuff like that. The case opened on Poshmark, the negative, super lowball offers. I don't know. There was a couple other things that happened that I can't even think of right now, and I don't want to be a downer about it. But what was interesting was that I didn't care. Like, all these things kept happening, and I was like, oh, well, whatever. So I think if, those things are even less noticeable the more you're selling and the more activity you have, but it just kind of was like one thing after another this past week. So anyway, I hope you guys are all having a great week, and I am going to go so I can try to get this uploaded to YouTube and have it come out on its normal day on Tuesday. So hope you guys are doing well, and I will catch you next time. Thanks so much, everybody.